I never saw it coming, but then again, does anyone? It strikes unexpectedly. Unexpected. Devastating. Much like lightning. While it may not take your life, it will undoubtedly wound your heart, destroying love, trust, and respect in the process. What am I talking about? Divorce? Of course. A single word that instills fear in most people. It does not simply break your heart. It rips it from your chest and crushes it underfoot as it continues to beat desperately, attempting to make sense of it all. My name is Gerard Dunn. I'm 35 and, in most ways, just an ordinary guy. I'm 5 feet, 11 inches tall, weigh approximately 195 pounds, and I've started to develop a spare tire around my midsection. I work as an electrical engineer and also do freelance editing for author friends online. In college, I met the woman I married. It happened in my junior year. I was rushing to my next class when a red-headed blur burst out of a classroom and slammed into me, sending both our books flying. "Look where you're going, a-hole," she snapped. "Now I am going to be late." "Thank you, you big oaf." Surprised, I responded. "Excuse me, but you are the one who ran into me. However, there is no problem. I'll grab your books." As I bent down to pick them up, she did the same, and we hit heads hard. "God damn it," she groaned. "You must be the clumsiest idiot in the entire school." She stormed off, leaving me standing there confused as I gathered the remaining books. My Calculus 2 textbook was missing, replaced by a Principles of Marketing book inside. I found a name and a phone number, most likely hers. I decided to call after class and try to get my book back. Until then, I put it out of mind. Later that afternoon, I borrowed a textbook from Professor Hardesty for my calculus class, returned it, and headed to the student union. They're using a payphone. I called the number written inside the book. "Hello. You've reached Georgia and Corinne. We are not available right now, but if you leave your name and phone number, we will contact you as soon as we can. Please wait until the beep. Beep. Hello, my name is Gerard Dunn, and I'm hoping that one of you has my calculus book. I have Corinne O'Brien's book, Principles of Marketing. You can reach me at the following number after 6 o'clock this evening. Thank you," I replied, and gave my dorm phone number. I completed my duties and was able to postpone them until Wednesday, when I had calculus again. I had some homework to complete, but I could use my roommate's book to do it. Thankfully, we were both engineering students. I left the student union, drove my truck to the dorm, and then went up to study for tomorrow's classes. I heard a knock on my door shortly after 6 o'clock. Gary Noonan mentioned that I had a phone call in the hallway. "Gerard, I hope you understand the bitch on the phone. She began cursing at me until I explained that I was not you. Man, what has gotten into her? I have no idea, Gary. But she is a red-headed Irish woman named Corinne O'Brien. I suppose the red-headed temper goes with the name and the hair. You might want to keep the phone away from your ear, because she certainly cleaned the wax out of mine tonight. Thank you, Gary. I'm warned." I picked up the receiver and said, "This is Gerard. You must be Corinne." Gary was correct. What I received was uncontrollable screams. "How dare you take my book? I needed it for that next class. And I had to wait until now to contact you to get my book back. Where are you now? So you can bring me my book." "Excuse me, Miss O'Brien, but you also have one of my books that I would like returned. I can meet you in the library or the student union in half an hour to exchange books. If that does not work for you, please let me know if you have another suggestion. Get your dumb, stupid buttocks to the library within 15 minutes, or I'll hand them to you on a platter. Get going, you bastard." She hung up. Oh, what a temper. I did notice that she was about 5 feet 4 inches tall, weighed about 125 pounds, and had fiery red hair. I see her temper is as fiery as her hair. And what a mouth she has. That is one bitch I will have to avoid. "Far away," I said. I now understand why she didn't change. She just mellowed, aged until now, and then exploded into a maelstrom of hatred and destruction. More about that later. I returned to my room, grabbed her book, and dashed off to the library. Thankfully, my dorm was only 3 buildings away from the library. I checked inside, and she hadn't arrived yet, so I waited outside. I was there for about 15 minutes, and no fireball had appeared, so I went inside again. I looked around the checkout desk and didn't see Corinne. I asked the librarian if she had seen a short, red-headed ball of fire, and she said no. So I went outside again to see if she was still there. To make a long story short, I waited nearly an hour before seeing her heading my way. I could almost see the heat waves radiating from her as she walked up the steps to where I was seated on the wall by the entrance. "Corinne, it's about damn time you arrived. I've been waiting over an hour for your scrawny buttocks to appear. Here is your book. Now, where the hell is mine?" I inquired. hoping to extinguish the fire I saw in her eyes. You're incorrect on both counts, a-hole. I am not Corinne. I'm Georgia Sanders, and I saw you enter the library just 5 minutes ago. Yeah, I walked into the library 5 minutes ago to see if you came through a different door. I arrived at 622, and I've been either sitting outside or going inside to look for you. Sorry, but ever since then, I've looked at my watch and said, it's 736 and you told me to be here 15 minutes after you called. I left my dorm at 611 and arrived within 15 minutes. But you were not. So, where are my calculus books, bitch? I never expected the response I received from my tirade. Mr. Dunn, I'm so sorry. Here is your book, and could I please have my roommate's book? I'm very sorry for my earlier outburst. I had mistakenly grabbed Corinne's book today. Please accept my apologies for how I have treated you. I assumed you were a bastard who ran into me to take advantage of me. I didn't expect someone like you. You were so sweet on the phone. And then I'm late getting here. I was astounded by your attitude and what you said. But I suppose you had every right to cuss at me, as I did to you both when we first met. And on the phone. That is not the real me. It is a defensive mechanism that I employ when I am embarrassed or upset. Please forgive me. Of course, Miss Sanders. Shall we try again? Hello. I am Gerard Dunn, and I am delighted to meet you, Miss Sanders. Would you like to go to the student union and have a coffee or a Coke? My treat. Oh, thank you, Mr. Dunn. I believe I would enjoy that very much. That is how it all began. We had a Coke. Well, I had a Pepsi, and she had a Dr. Pepper. In the South, however, all sodas are Cokes. It is not uncommon to hear, what kind of Coke do you want? We have all kinds. We started talking, and then we noticed the time. It was midnight, and we both had early classes in the morning. I called Georgia on Wednesday and asked if I could take her out to dinner and a movie on Saturday. She agreed, and I had asked for her hand in marriage by January of my senior year. During spring break that year, we went to see both her parents and mine, and I formally asked her father for her hand. We remained engaged until she graduated a year later. I graduated a year before Georgia and landed a great job at a major electronics firm in Austin. Georgia was able to find a job at Geiger Manufacturing, and we married a year after she graduated. For the next 5 years, everything went fairly smoothly. We had a few hiccups and a couple of arguments, and Georgia turned into a super bitch. Just like when we first met, but everything went well. Overall, I inquired about children about a year after we married, and Georgia requested that we wait another year to allow her to establish herself. Jerome arrived the following year, and Betsy joined us a year later. Georgia shut down the baby factory. We did not want to deal with pills, patches, diaphragms, foam, or condoms. So I got snipped. I was all for it. It was reversible and less painful than having a baby. When Betsy and Georgia were still in the hospital, I went to the doctor and got clipped. I should be ready to continue our sexual relationship. Georgia was able to resume her bedroom activities after the doctor cleared her. We continued to have very active sex 3 to 4 times per week, which was fine with me. Let's fast forward 10 years. Betsy is in 5th grade. Jerome is in 6th grade, and things were looking up. Georgia was due for a promotion to marketing manager, and I had been appointed manager of engineering services. Georgia did travel for her job, but only 3 to 4 days every other month. This was something we could handle, so it was not an issue. My job required some travel, but it was mostly for seminars on new equipment. Those usually lasted a week, and I wouldn't have to go again for about 6 months to a year. I had just been assigned to lead a new project. I was working a little overtime, but there was no pay increase because I was now salaried. I simply worked longer hours during some weeks instead of the usual 40. I was putting in 7 to 10 extra hours per week, which I tried to schedule for an hour or so each day, or on Saturdays. I was only working overtime about once every other week. Our sex life had deteriorated, but we were still having sex once or twice a week. After the kids went to bed, our house had the master suite on one side, the other 2 bedrooms and a small den on the other, and the living and dining rooms in the center. The den was originally a 3rd bedroom, but we converted it into a den when the kids grew older. It was originally their playroom. I had started doing some very amateur writing for the internet, as well as some editing for some of my favorite authors, but it was only about 1 or 2 hours per night. That usually occurred after Georgia went to bed at 10 p.m. I could have done it earlier, while Georgia sat in her chair reading or watching TV after dinner. I had recently noticed Georgia having mood swings and assumed she was sick or reverting to her old ways of being a super bitch when things didn't work out for her. It didn't happen very often, so I forgot about it until I noticed Georgia squinting last week and asked if she needed new reading glasses. The bitch emerged to play for a few minutes, before returning to her hiding place. This was new to her, so I asked if she needed a full physical, as it had been a few years since her last one. She said she'd make an appointment, and I dropped the subject. Tonight was a Tuesday, and it was my turn to prepare supper, so I did not work overtime. I put a roast in the crock pot before leaving this morning. I added the potatoes, carrots, celery, and baby onions as soon as I arrived home. Georgia came in about an hour after I arrived home and said, "Wow, something smells good tonight." I responded, "Yes, honey, I have a roast in the crock pot that should be ready once you change and relax a little. Would you like some wine with your supper?" "Oh, Jared, that sounds lovely. I would love some. I'm going to take a shower and then head out." I had already fed the children, and they were in their rooms doing their homework. The kids always stopped by my parents' house after school, because it was only a 5-minute walk from the school grounds. My parents lived about 2 miles away in the subdivision that came before ours, so whoever got off work first would pick up the kids and bring them home. I had completed my new project a week ahead of schedule, and I was planning to do something for Georgia since I had worked a lot of overtime on it. I planned to surprise her tonight by asking if she wanted to spend a long weekend at a bed and breakfast in Fredericksburg's Hill Country in the coming weeks. I hadn't made reservations yet, because I wanted to ensure that she could attend. My director had already said I could take some time off, and I would receive a large bonus for completing the project ahead of schedule. I took a bottle of red from the pantry, opened it to let it breathe, and then went about preparing our meal. I heard the shower running, and thought it was strange that Georgia took a shower right after arriving home. It had been a hot day, so she may have been out and about before returning home. I didn't think anything more about it. As I worked in the kitchen, preparing everything and arranging it on the table, I had picked up some flowers from the kids selling them in front of our subdivision. On the way home, I set them on the table in a lovely vase. When I heard the shower turn off, I set our plates next to each other and began dishing up the roast vegetables. When Georgia emerged from the bedroom in her mid-length robe, I had already cut the roast and was preparing to serve. Her hair was still damp, but she resembled an angel to me. I held her chair, poured her wine, and then bent down to kiss her neck. I whispered that I loved her and had a surprise for her after our meal. "I have a surprise for you afterward as well." We made some small talk while I dished up her plate, and we ate. The kids came out after finishing their homework and began playing with their games. I explained that we needed some adult time together. I believe they understood even at 10 and 11. They knew we didn't have much alone time because of all the overtime I had worked. George is traveling, and she is also working some overtime. I did tell her at supper that my overtime would be gone for a while, because we had finished my project early. She said it was nice, but I knew something wasn't right. I had a sense of impending doom and wondered if she needed to make a long trip. I put the dishes away and sat back down next to my wife. She poured us each a full glass of wine and stated, "We need to talk, Gerard." Oh, God. What happened? Gerard. I'm not sure how to say it, but I want a divorce and will take the children with me. When I looked into those emerald green eyes, I saw fire. I hadn't seen that look in about 5 or 6 years. I knew right away that I was in for a very bad time. After my initial shock, I questioned why. What did I do to deserve this unexpected attack from you? I thought we had a wonderful marriage. Except for when I'm training at a seminar, I spend every night at home. I make love to you every chance I get. Usually 2-3 times per week. And I give you whatever you want. You drive a new car in this house. God, Georgia, what did I do wrong? Gerard, it isn't just one thing. It's sort of a collection of things. You go into that damn den, get on that computer, and spend the entire night watching porn. You never make time for me at night. You aren't touching me like you used to. You no longer want to go out and party with me, as we used to. It's all that and more. How do you say those things? I sit in my chair and watch whatever crap you have on TV while you read a book. Then you have the gall to say that I never pay attention to you. 9 times out of 10, I only use my computer after you have gone to bed, except when I need to do something for work, which I usually do after you've gone to bed. I never made you wait for love in the bedroom. You would either say something, or I would start it. We went to bed after ensuring the children were asleep. How can you claim I don't appreciate or pay attention to you? I simply don't understand. We went out dancing at the Tip Top Club just 2 weeks ago. So, how can you say such things about me? Just about then, the red-headed bitch came out to play, and things quickly heated up. Then, as she was screaming at me, I noticed Jerome and Betsy standing in the hallway leading to their rooms. Jerome was tightly holding his sister to his body, and they were both shaking with eyes open as wide as garage doors. I grabbed Georgia by the shoulders and tried to turn her around, but she slapped my face and turned to go into our bedroom. When she saw the 2 huddled children on the floor of the hallway, See what you've done now, you bastard. Get out of my house. Leave her now. I couldn't believe what had just happened. I turned toward the kitchen, grabbed my truck keys, and walked towards the door to the garage. I left after briefly looking back at my children. I was about a block from the house when I pulled over and imploded. I was shaking so much that I couldn't drive. I sat there weeping. My entire life had just ended. My wife wanted a divorce. She wanted to take my kids away from me, and she kicked me out of my own home. I started calling my father and took my phone out of my shirt pocket, but my clumsy hands shook so hard that I couldn't hold it, and it clattered to the floor. I sat slumped over the steering wheel. Every sob, sniff, and beat of my heart reminded me that my life was slipping away. I don't know how long I sat there with the truck running, and me slumped over the wheel. I heard a tapping noise from a long way away. I kept trying to push the noise away, but it became so loud that words began to flow through my mind. Hey, you. Open the door, or roll down the window. Mister. Just words with no meaning. Nothing held meaning anymore. My life was over, and there was nothing I could do about it. I might as well die right now. There was a sudden crash of broken glass. I looked up and saw no difference. But wait. There were blue and red flashes on the trees and fences surrounding me. Then a hand grasped and shook me. I looked to my right and saw an arm reach through my shattered passenger window. The arm was wrapped in dark cloth, with some sort of fabric, banner, or badge on the upper sleeve. The door on my side opened, and I looked in that direction. I could only see a bright light shining in my eyes. Initially, I assumed it was the light at the end of a long tunnel, or perhaps the infamous light that people nearing death claim to see. That's when everything turned black. Then nothing. When I awoke, I was in a bed with various tubes and wires attached to my body. I was strapped down to the bed and couldn't move. Even my legs were strapped down. I tried to yell, but only a croak came out. What exactly had happened? The last thing I remember is the light. Had I actually died? And was this heaven? Probably not. So it had to be hell. But I believed that I had been a good and honest man. So I should have gone the other way. Perhaps this was Georgia's cruel joke. Oh, yes. Georgia, the bitch who ripped my still beating heart out of my chest, put it through the meat grinder, and then attempted to hand feed it to me. God, she was a cruel and heartless bitch. I tried to move around to get more comfortable, but I must have pulled on something. My penis was in excruciating pain, and I screamed bloody terror. This time, sound came out of my mouth, and it was loud in that room. The door swung open unexpectedly, allowing 2 nurses to run through. What happened? Said one. I do not know. All I know is that my penis hurts terribly. Can you see what happened there? Please let me know if. Is this heaven or hell? One of the nurses, a woman around 45 or 50, lifted the sheet, and I yelled out in pain again. Your catheter's tape has come loose. It was stuck to the sheet, pulling on the tape and catheter. When you moved. The younger nurse, who was probably in her mid-20s, said, You are not in heaven or hell. You're at Seton Medical Center, Williamson. You have been here for 4 days now. Following your seizure, the Round Rock Police Department brought you in. They discovered you slumped over the wheel of your truck. You had a seizure when they tried to wake you up, so you were rushed here. You've been in a coma ever since. Have my wife, children, or parents been informed that I am here? So far as I know. Your wife was notified. She has not appeared thus far. Your mother departed about a half hour ago. And your father's due date is approaching. Is there anyone else we could contact? No. No one. I suppose I can wait for my father to call my office and let them know. Oh, yes. Can I get unstrapped from this contraption? I'll call the doctor and see what he wants done, but I'm confident he'll authorize it for you. Thank you. Nurse. My name is Nurse Pamela, but you can call me Pam. And this is Nurse Agnes. Thank you both. But especially you, Nurse Agnes. That feels a lot better now. I am only trying to help. Young man, you claim to have a wife and children, but they have not come to see you. That's extremely strange. I know they were notified. I heard the officer specifically say that he used your cell phone to contact the people you identified. Why wouldn't a wife want to see her husband? Asked Nurse Agnes. I see. That is in case of emergency. It should be on everyone's phone, VR. I wouldn't mind finding out the answer for myself. What I recall was that I was at home and had just finished eating dinner when my wife informed me that she wanted a divorce and was taking my children away. She then kicked me out of the house. I drove away and arrived here. I don't know why she wants a divorce. I thought everything was fine until she dropped the bombshell on me. You did not cheat on her, did you, son? No, ma'am. I'd never do that. I love my family too much to do that to them. Nurse Agnes said. Well, I won't pry. You try to rest now, and I'll get with the doctor as soon as I can. Thank you. Both. You've been a big help. but I really want to get out of this bed. They left the door open when they left. My father walked in about 5 minutes later. Are you okay, son? You had both of us worried. Do you know why Georgia took off with the kids? She did. That bitch. She dropped this on me after dinner on Tuesday. I was on my way to your house when I had to stop driving. I couldn't see through the tears in my eyes, and my hands shook so badly that I couldn't hold the steering wheel. I woke up about 20 minutes ago. What happened? Gerard? I haven't spoken to Georgia since last week. I tried calling her at work, home, and on her cell phone, but I got nothing. The kids haven't attended school since Tuesday. We have no idea where they are. We're getting worried about them. We were also concerned about you and wanted to know what had actually happened that night after we were called. I went over there, and the house was dark, so I couldn't tell if George's car was in the garage. Your mother and I spent the first night here with you, and when we tried to call Georgia, there was no answer. Tell me exactly what she said. I told Dad everything I remembered, and then told him we needed to contact the police and the FBI. She kidnapped the children, and I want to find that bitch. My father took his cell phone out of his pocket, dialed a number from memory, and asked, how? This is Jim. She kidnapped the children, informed Jared that she wanted a divorce, and kicked him out. There was a pause then. Yeah. He told me to call you and get the FBI involved. Another pause. Yeah, it's been over 3 days, so the waiting time for a missing person report is up. Okay. How? I will let him know. See you soon. Dad said he hung up and looked at me while my father was on the phone. I was thinking, my God, what is happening to me? Why am I thinking and saying such things about Georgia to my father? She and then our children have occupied my entire life since we were married. How can one suddenly transform from a loving husband to a monster like this? Until Tuesday evening, I was filled with horrifying thoughts of torture and mayhem against someone I loved or once loved. That was Harold Price, the Round Rock police chief. He is going to contact Jack Webb at the FBI and get them involved in this. Nobody at George's workplace appears to know anything about this. They could be hiding the fact that she is still working there. Maybe she skipped them too. Do you know if the divorce was due to a secret lover, or something similar? Why hasn't she filed if she wants a divorce? How will he check with the county court clerk tomorrow to see if she has filed a divorce petition? Man, this is a complete mess. Dad, I don't really care where that bitch is. I want my children back. I want her hunted down like the black-hearted bitch she is. I don't care if she's having another defense mechanism episode. She went too far this time. What do you mean by defense mechanism episode? He asked. I explained how she would occasionally become this mean-spirited bitch, and she explained that it was a defense mechanism that allowed her to cope with situations beyond her control or comfort zone. He grabbed his phone after I explained and showed him some examples. I was thinking about what I would do to Georgia if she were here right now again. I've heard of a mother's reaction to her children running into burning buildings and emerging with their robe or dress on fire and not thinking about it, or ripping a car door off its hinges to reach their child. It's a mother's reaction to her child in danger. That, and an adrenaline rush. Fathers understand this as well. And it appeared that mine had set in with a vengeance. I should say something about my father. Dad served in the Air Force for 30 years, the last 10 of which he spent at what is now Austin Bergstrom International Airport ABA, which was previously known as Bergstrom AFB. When the base closed in 1993, he was a member of the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, or FOSI. The Air Force's version of NCIS serves as one of the Navy and Marine Corps' higher-ranking special agents. He knew many of the local law enforcement officers, as well as FBI agents, DEA, DPS, Department of Public Safety, State Police, Texas Rangers, and others whose affiliations were never revealed, but most likely belonged to some alphabet soup organization in Washington, D.C. So for him, dialing a number on his phone and receiving an immediate response was just part of who he was. He was just my father to me, but he had a way of making people want to do things for him. I suppose he was owed so many favors that people simply answered when he called. I had no idea what was going on, but I knew that that bitch better not hurt my kids, or she would be a sorry dead bitch. God. There it is again. Where does this hatred come from? I would never have thought about Georgia in this way. Basically, any woman. Nurse Agnes came in a little later, unstrapped me, and removed the catheter. She did leave the wires that were monitoring my vital signs on me, however. She returned a few minutes after removing everything, carrying another tray of items. She injected something into my drip line for Mr. Dunn. The doctor wants you to rest. We could see that you were becoming agitated again, and he wants you to remain calm for a little longer. This should not make you sleepy. It's primarily intended to relieve stress. He doesn't want you to get too excited. You actually had a seizure of some kind. And he wants you to stay calm for a while so you don't have another seizure. You had an MRI of your head and found no lesions or aneurysms, so there was no stroke. However, we continue to closely monitor you. I overheard some of what you said to your father, and I want you to know that he is speaking with a couple of police officers and, I believe, an FBI man. Right now, I'm not sure. Of course. I understand your rage, and you have every right to be angry. But getting so worked up right after something like the seizure you experienced is bad for your health. You were not medically induced into a coma. So it was your own body shutting down. You were tossing and turning so much that we had to strap you down to keep you from hurting yourself any further. I hope you understand. We need you to remain calm and rational right now. You will not help your children if you continue to be hurt. So you're saying I really hurt myself with this seizure, and that I should stay calm for a while to avoid having another one? Right. That is it. Exactly. We're doing our best to help you get better. Staying calm will help your body heal itself. Do you understand more now? Yes, I do. Nurse Agnes, I appreciate you speaking to me in this manner. I need to stay healthy for my children's sake. I would like to find that woman, but I understand that I cannot right now, and I have to rely on others to assist me with this. I'll try to think of where she could have gone. After nearly 14 years together, I believe I know her best. We've been married for almost 12 years, and this is the first time she's behaved this badly since I met her. I am much more relaxed now. Thank you, Nurse Agnes. Please ask my father to come back in when he's finished outside. I definitely will. Mr. Dunn, please try to rest a little. I was dozing off when my father returned to the room. Dad, I've been wondering where Georgia might go if she believes no one will ever look for her. She has a crazy uncle near Shreveport, and she had a college roommate named Corinne O'Brien who was from Springfield, Missouri. People are unlikely to look for her in either of these two locations. Her uncle was only about 10 years older than her, and I know she writes to Corinne around Christmas time. If my computer is still at home, and no one has messed with it, there should be a Christmas card list in an Excel spreadsheet. I'm not sure, but her uncle may be on that list. I saved the list so I can print the labels for the greeting cards. Corinne's last name appears to be Spalding. Wow, Gerard, how do you remember all that? I have trouble recalling half of the people we send cards to each year. I believe your mother has a similar list that she uses each year, but she does not use labels. Let me call Hal to see what he can find out. Dad was on the phone again when I fell asleep. I was very tired. I was worried about my precious Betsy and Jerome, and what that bitch had done to them as well. I remembered Jerome wrapping his arms around his sister, attempting to shield her from his mother's wrath. I wanted to strangle her after that slap, but not in front of the kids. That is why I walked away. I wanted to protect my kids, but I'll never forget Jerome's look of betrayal when I didn't fight back and simply left. I didn't realize I'd seen that look from him until I turned back to look at my children for the last time. Now, the question was, would that be the last time I saw them? Only time will tell. That's when I lost consciousness and fell into the arms of Hypnos and his son, Morpheus. I believe it was morning when I awoke again. There were several nurses fussing around me, and Mom was sitting on the chair, out of the way. The nurses moved, and I passed out. Is there any word yet, Mother? Not yet. Gerard. Oh, I'm sorry you had to be hurt like this. I knew something was wrong when she picked up the kids on Monday night, but I couldn't pinpoint what it was. Georgia appeared fine, but there was something in the back of her mind. I should have warned you that something was wrong. I just hope your babies are okay. I will never forgive her for what she has done to our family. We can deal with forgiveness, hate, and everything else later, Mom. Right now, our primary concern is locating the children, and hopefully her as well. Once that's accomplished, I'm going to see about having her committed for psychiatric care, because she is definitely not right in the head. I think that is an excellent idea, honey. Your father and I will help you all we can. We love you, and we love your children. We even came to love Georgia, but not her temper. Are you saying that you have seen her fiery temper before? The last time I remember seeing it was about 5 years ago, shortly after Betsy started school. Have you seen her mad since then? Yes, son, I have twice. She came over to pick the children up one night, and she was mad about something that happened at work. She was slamming doors and was very upset. I tried to calm her down, and she appeared to be much better when she left. Jerome had torn his jacket at school the other time, and she almost slapped him, but I grabbed her hand before she could. I slapped her face so hard that my hand stung. She turned toward me and raised her hand, but Jerome jumped up, grabbed her arm, and hung on for dear life. Then she just as suddenly changed and dropped to the floor. She was sobbing about whatever it was that caused her to fly off the handle like that. I know I should have told you about both times, but she made me promise that I wouldn't say anything. Your father doesn't even know about this yet, but he will. I'll tell him as soon as I see him. Mom, has this been occurring more lately? I mean, has she recently had more episodes than before? She went back to work after Betsy started school. Now that I think about it, she's been acting a little irritated when she picks up the kids, but she calms down as soon as she sees them, or when I call her out on her attitude. I guess I should call him right now. Tell him everything. Include the remaining 2 times. And last Monday night, too. He needs to know so that he can inform the police and FBI. Georgia is a very sick woman who desperately needs assistance. I'm going to make sure she gets it. Gerard, you are such a good son and man. I'm so glad you turned out as you did. Most men would have killed the wife who took their children and fled, as she did. So, if the problem is her fiery temper, Mom, I'll try to get her some help to get some of that anger out. But if she's only doing this to be mean to me, killing might not be such a bad idea. We'll see what happens when she's found. Mom had called Dad and was talking to him when the nurse entered. She asked if I needed anything. Yes, I could use some rest. I'm exhausted from trying to hold it together until I find out where my children are and if they're okay. I am sure the doctor does not want me to worry myself into another seizure. No problem, Mr. Dunn. I believe he left instructions for us to help you sleep. I will be right back. She quickly returned with a syringe for my 4, and I took another nap. I woke up a few hours later. According to the clock on the wall near the bathroom door, Dad sat in the chair and smiled. They found the kids in Georgia, right, Father? The first see it in your smile. They have not found them yet, but they know where she is going and where she was yesterday. She went looking for you shortly after you left. I saw the cops with you slumped over the wheel, and she assumed the worst. She assumed you had killed yourself, or suffered a heart attack, as her father had, and that you were dead. She panicked and fled with the children. She visited a coworker's home. They stayed there overnight before leaving for Shreveport. Her uncle, Russell Navarre, stated that she left for Springfield yesterday. You were correct, son. You knew where she was going. That's wonderful news, Dad. But how are the children? According to Mr. Navarre, the children enjoyed their trip. Jerome was concerned about you, but Georgia stated that you had gone to heaven. That's why they were traveling. She had to try to train them to do things without you. They cried a lot in the first few days. They arrived in Shreveport, but he said they were better before leaving yesterday. Georgia said she was going to see Corinne. The FBI stated that they would have agents there to intercept her and return her and the children home. She would be taken into custody, but there would be no handcuffs or anything like that in front of the children. Your mother flew up there shortly after we learned she should be there right now. We anticipated that the children would approach her before me, so she went willingly. They'll call me when they get her in. The kids. Oh, that is wonderful news, Dad. I had a couple of catches in my throat, but I was soon fine again. I hope Georgia is not suffering from any mental health issues. I hope and pray that this is a hormonal issue that can be treated with the right medication, rather than something wrong with her mind. We all hope that's the case, son. We should hear within the next few hours. So, why don't you take some more rest? I'm sure the emotional roller coaster you're riding is tough on you. After everything you've been through, including the seizure, I spoke to the doctor. He reasoned that they could disconnect your monitoring wires and remove the 4. Once we know everyone is safe and you are calm, you will be on liquids for a day or so before transitioning to soft foods until your system returns to normal. Did anyone contact Frances, my boss, about this? Oh yes. Gerard. I called Frances the following morning. I actually received your payment from Suzanne, but she transferred it to Francis. We had a long conversation, and he said you deserved a rest, but he didn't think this was the way to go about it. He said you had at least a couple of weeks off after the last project. By the way, they sold the project for nearly twice what you expected. Francis mentioned that your bonus and promotion were in the works. What is the promotion? I was just promoted to manager of engineering services less than a year ago. This was my first project as a manager. Francis hinted that the position of director of engineering was open, and you already had it. But it's his job. What will he do? I'm not sure, but he did mention that Fred Dwyer was retiring in 2 months, which may mean something to you. Yes, it means something to me. Fred is Francis's boss. Fred is the director of operations. Wow. I've got a lot to look forward to. This also means no more travel for me. I also know exactly who I want in my old job. That's some exciting news to kick off the spring season. Thank you for calling Francis for me, Dad. I need to call and congratulate him later. Dad received a phone call approximately 2 hours later. I was handed the phone after some conversation and said hello. Daddy. Is that actually you? Yes, Jerome. It's me. I am alive. I'm in the hospital, but I am fine. I just miss my big man. How's your sister doing? Is she doing well? Yes, Dad, she is doing well. She's still upset with Mom right now, but she's relieved you're okay. We were both very worried about you. We believe Mommy went a little crazy when she thought you were dead. She sat us down and sincerely apologized for slapping and yelling at you that night. She explained that she was sick and needed to get away. We had a nice trip to Uncle Russell's, and I even got to go fishing with him. There was a prolonged pause. Then he asked, "Can we come home now, Dad? I'm tired of driving around so much. I just want to go back to school and be at home with you and Mommy." Of course, you can. Jerome, could I speak with Betsy for a minute? Then you can return home. Sure, Dad. Grandma said we were going to fly home in an airplane. Here's Betsy. Daddy, are you really fine? Yes, sweetie. I am fine. Now that I know my princess is okay, I'll be out of the hospital and back home with you soon. I'm still a little sick, but not so bad that you can't come see me when you get back home. Oh goody. Daddy, I love you. Don't get sick and die on me again, okay? I promise. Princess, can I talk to Mommy now? I'll see if the nice man lets her speak to you. I heard the phone being dropped with a loud bang. My mother then came on the line. Gerard, honey, she's talking with a doctor right now. You don't have to worry about her seeing a doctor. She is going to be involuntarily placed under observation for 14 days. Then we shall see. They will also examine her physically to determine if anything is wrong. She'll be in good hands. My question is, do you really want to press charges for the kidnapping? No, Mom. I just wanted the kids to be found and safe. If we can do it without making a fuss, I don't want to hurt her too much. If she's sick, as I suspect, that is the cause. If there is something else, I believe we should go for it. But I'd like to hold off for the time being. I'm sure something will come of it, especially with the FBI involved, but I'm not going to press it right now. Inform the doctor about Georgia's recent activities, as well as the fact that she has been squinting while reading. I noticed that the last book she borrowed from the library was one of those big print books. I believe that is the situation Jack was referring to. They're going to wait and see until the test and evaluation results are back. We should get home tomorrow. We'll see you very soon after that. I'll be sure to tell the doctor everything about her recent behavior. Thank you, Mom. You and Dad are the best parents a guy could ever have. I love you too. There's so much. Now hurry home so my children can see that I am fine. We all love you, son. See you soon. Bye. I returned the phone to my father and wept tears of joy. My children were all fine, and my wife was receiving proper care. I was also pretty out of the woods. In terms of sickness, it appeared that I was being kicked up to the top floor, and I had a bright future ahead of me. It all depends on what we learn about Georgia. I lay back and slept, relieving my exhaustion. They found my children unharmed. My children's homecoming was a very emotional time. I hugged and kissed both of them, and I received numerous deep hugs and kisses in return. I was released from the hospital a week after they returned home. Georgia still had 6 more days of observation. She was at a mental health facility in Austin. They tried a few things to make her angry. They told her I was divorcing her, and that I had left with the kids several times. I finally got to see her once, and I said, "I know you're sick, Georgia. I'm not sure if you think your hormones are out of sync or something else, but I'll find out. Whatever it is, you'll probably avoid me for a while. When I do, you've fueled my rage. You know, I take martial arts classes to protect myself, and I probably know 50 ways to hurt you. I feel as if what happened on Tuesday night has hurt me. I wanted to hurt you for what happened that night over the next 4 days. And if I ever find out that this was a ruse to get rid of me, you will receive tenfold retribution for what you did to me that night, unexpectedly. You might not be able to live through that payback, so remember that it can happen at any time. I still feel love for you, but my faith in you is gone. Honey, I may be able to forgive you in the future, but I won't forget. For your sake, I hope you recover from whatever is wrong with you. You learn from your mistakes. I'm deeply sorry for what I've done to you and our family, Gerard. I scared the kids almost to death. But when I saw you slumped over that steering wheel, I was afraid you were dead. I noticed that the police were also present. I just panicked and left, spending the night with Corinne and Steve. I left for my uncle's home in Shreveport. The following morning, I suppose you know the rest of my ill-fated journey to Hyde. The doctor says that, yes, I am sick, Gerard. But the sickness in my mind is not the only thing wrong with me. I also have physical problems. I've got a brain tumor. I seem to have had it for quite some time. I might even have had it when we met. They do not believe it is malignant because it has taken so long to manifest. So they want to continue operating after I leave here. They will then bring me back for further observation. I really want to get this done. I can't authorize it because I'm in here. You will have to do it as my next of kin. I hope and pray that you will forgive me enough to allow me to have the operation. If everything works out, I'll be back to my old self. And we can move on with our lives. If not, I might not be around to kiss my angels again. I need to see them before the surgery so I can express how much I love them. Jared, I love you more than I can ever express. But I didn't always like you. According to the doctors, this occurred when the tumor put pressure on a specific area of my brain that controls emotions. When I became upset about something in my life, it would cause a response in my brain, aggravating the tumor. This, in turn, would affect my emotions. I had to try to break this never-ending cycle. Most of the time, just looking at our children or you would calm me down. However, Tom Forrest and Ray Woods at work have been making advances on me recently. I'd had enough and complained to HR. I filed a sexual harassment complaint against them on Monday and returned on Tuesday. Tom threatened to fire me if I filed the complaint. I went back to HR and told them I wanted to file another complaint. However, the creep at HR brushed me off. I became enraged and approached his boss, who assured me that he would handle the situation. Instead, Ray wrote me up with a poor performance review. I took off and found a female lawyer to sue the company, Tom Ray and Dale Gibbons, for sexual harassment and threatening to fire me if I didn't back down. Cindy Lou Harris is my only witness, and she is terrified that they will also fire her. What if she tells us what happened? That's what made me angry with men in general. And then you said you had a surprise for me, and I blew up. I sincerely apologize for that, but it took me almost until Springfield to calm down and realize what I had done, and what I needed to do to put an end to all of this. I just hope my apology is not too late. Gerard, my only question is why you didn't tell me about the problems at work earlier. Georgia, did you think I wouldn't care, or would I suspect you were cheating on me? You and I, are what makes this marriage work. Georgia, with our love, understanding, and, most importantly, communicating with one another, we can overcome many obstacles that others cannot. We can solve almost any problem that comes our way through effective communication. It's just the two of us. However, without real communication, things fall by the wayside or become too large a problem for one of us to solve alone. My surprise that Tuesday night was that I completed my project ahead of schedule and significantly under budget. I was given a 3-day weekend at a bed and breakfast in Fredericksburg. I have also learned that I am being promoted to Director of Engineering Operations. We're going to see your lady lawyer, or perhaps someone new. We will pursue this complaint after we get you out of here. And heads will roll over if I say anything about it. If not, Tom and Ray, along with a specific HR creep, may need to be visited by some of my friends. But we'll work it out together. I love you very much, Georgia, but we both need to improve our communication skills. Georgia then sat in my lap, hugged me, and cried for a while. I noticed her doctor watching us from the solarium window. I believe things were working out for us. I had a long conversation with the psychologist who was observing Georgia. He stated that he believed she needed an MRI of her head. Some of her symptoms led him to believe that there was a tumor pressing on certain parts of her brain, causing violent mood swings, headaches, nausea, and vision changes. Stress can trigger some of her symptoms, but not all of them. He also stated that her inability to cope with stress was causing additional stress, and that this stress, combined with a possible tumor, could be the source of many of her problems. Georgia was experiencing. Gerard, there is one certainty in her mind right now. She loves you. There is no question about it. Outside of work, you and her children are her entire world. Her work environment causes her a great deal of stress. She told me some of that, and she elaborated during hypnosis. I was able to gain a better understanding of what she has been through. It truly is a hostile environment, complete with aggressive flirting, sexual innuendo, and dirty jokes. If necessary, I can testify to Georgia's mental state as a result of the constant bombardment from the sexually hostile work environment in which she was forced to work. This also applies to several other women in the same section. She was referred to a neurosurgeon for an MRI to determine what was going on inside her head during her mandatory 14-day observation period. There was a tumor, and her new neurosurgeon had scheduled her for surgery to remove it. Many of her mood swings were caused by where the tumor was located. It also caused her to become violent and to lose track of what was happening during her attacks. Her neurosurgeon, Dr. Spensky, approached me after the surgery and explained what he discovered. This tumor had been slowly growing for about a year, before suddenly increasing in size. He suspected that the increased stress from her job, as well as my absence from home due to long hours, was exacerbating the situation, and may have even begun to change from benign to malignant, resulting in a pre-malignant tumor. He had caught it when the change had not yet occurred. However, she would require plenty of bed rest following her 5-day hospital stay. She would be well cared for the next 2 weeks after surgery. She would be allowed to return home once her stay at Seton's rehabilitation facility was complete. However, he must remain under someone's care for an additional 2 weeks to ensure his continued good health. There is a risk of weakness, loss of balance, loss of vision, loss of memory, difficulty speaking, difficulty performing complex tasks, or difficulty making decisions. These were all symptoms that necessitated additional surgery, or MRIs, to determine the cause. Georgia finished her 2 weeks of rehab and returned home. Mom kept her at her house during the day, and Georgia would accompany me home after I picked up the kids. We all catered to and pampered her to the point where she said we had to stop before she became so spoiled that she refused to return to work and instead stayed at home. Okay, Georgia, with my new promotion, no more travel except in emergencies, and a raise in my salary, I believe we can get by on my income alone. So, if you want to stay at home and become a housewife, do so. You're not getting off so easily, mister. I intend to return to Geiger and take over Roy Wood's position, and that is my final decision. I'll make sure he and the other 2 bid office Romeos get what they deserve. There will be no discussion about that score. Yes, dear. What am I supposed to say now? Not for a million years. My wife had returned, and we could resume making love 2 or 3 times per week. With another week to go. This was a long and dry spell for both of us. 7? More like 8 weeks with no love for either of us. Needless to say, we were really looking forward to this Friday evening. We sent the kids to Grandma's for the weekend, and I don't think we got out of bed other than to eat or drink until Sunday afternoon. We might not have been caught up, but we were not complaining. Except that we were tired of staying in bed for so long. Georgia and I went into Geiger Manufacturing together 2 months after our conversation. Suzanne Stokes, her boss Samuel Spade, and Brittany, a gum-chewing ponytailed college girl who worked as a court officer and process server, were all in our group. I had scheduled an appointment with Mr. Tate Manning, the head of HR. I had also insisted that his assistant, Dale Gibbons, as well as Ray Woods and Tom Force, attend. I asked if Mr. George Geiger would be able to join us. I was told he and his legal team would be there. We all sat down in the large conference room. Geiger and his staff were on one side, while our entourage was on the other. Brittany initiated the conversation by requesting names and identification. Once it was clear who was who, she handed out the envelopes and left, saying, "Gentlemen, you have all been served. Good day." That's when things got a little tense in the room. Mr. Geiger finally handed over his papers to his legal team and inquired about the situation. I explained the situation as I described what had occurred. Mr. Geiger observed Tom, Dale, and Ray. He told Tate Manning that they were gone. As of this moment, all 3 of them. They all protested loudly. They were attempting to make their case to Mr. Geiger, claiming that it was their word against a disgruntled mental patient, that they had been with the company longer, and all sorts of other stuff. This lasted for 15 minutes or more, when Mr. Geiger halted the name-calling and bitching and requested some quiet time to think. George Geiger looked into my eyes, then George's, and finally at the 3 men. He looked at them intently, just as he had at Georgia and me. He looked over at Tate Manning and then his lawyers. He turned back to Georgia and said, "I've made my decision, and it's final." "Understood," he said, looking at the 5 of us again. "Tate, I need Mr. Woods, Mr. Forrest, and Mr. Gibbons out of this building in 30 minutes or less. And I want them escorted once they leave this room. Is this clear? There will be no arguments and no removal of company property. Is this understood? Good. Then we're done with these 3 poor excuses for humans. Now, Georgia, let's get down to what you want," I said. "Not so fast, Mr. Geiger. There is still the issue of alienation of affection suits against them. You can bring this up with their new lawyers as soon as they hire them. They do not work for this company anymore. I'll also assist Miss Harris in pursuing her lawsuit against them. I will not tolerate sexual harassment in my workplace. I will not accept employee intimidation to overlook wrongdoing. Now, Mr. Donner, what do you want from me? I believe my wife should be able to return to her previous job. Or maybe it's Mr. Wood's job. According to what she has told me, and what I have learned from several of her coworkers, she was already doing the majority of the work. Tate, I want you to look into it. I believe we may have a new marketing manager as of today. Miss S. Dunn, I see your hair is beginning to grow back. I believe the operation was a success. Yes, sir, Mr. Geiger. First let me say thank you for your confidence in me. I will do an excellent job for you in my new position. Secondly, I'm still getting some treatment for some of the problems I had. But that should all be cleared up in less than a month. I'm actually kind of excited about getting back to work. I have missed the work, and some of the people. Well, if we have no further issues at hand, I suggest that we all get back to work. You, Mrs. Dunn, will soon be hearing from my legal team regarding some compensation. Do we contact you, Mr. Spade or Miss Stokes, regarding the settlement? Sam spoke up and said, Miss Stokes is the primary on this case. I don't want to thank you, Mr. Geiger. I always like to see you take charge, kind of guy on matters like this. I only came along to provide moral support for both Mrs. Stokes and Mrs. Dunn. I am an old friend of the Dunn family. I went to school with Gerard's father and served with him during the time between wars. The meeting broke up after some small talk around the table, and we went home. I guess that is all to tell of my tale of torture and pain. It's been almost a year now, and things are back to normal, although we have done a little more traveling with the children. We made it to Disney World in Florida during this last summer, and we have another trip to the Grand Canyon scheduled for next year. I'd say that my life is fantastic overall. We settled all the suits, and Georgia is now a very rich woman. She got almost $2 million from all the suits. She has put it into an investment fund, and we finance our trips from the interest. The rest is for the children's college fund and our retirement. Here's the next story. There are numerous types of cheaters, and each has a unique story to tell. We are using a realistic voice to give you my advice and suggestions on what to do. It was one of the most heated arguments we'd ever had. So large that I moved out of our house for over 10 years. It had become our home now. Now it was just a place where I had lived for the previous 6 months. My wife and I had met 11 years ago. It occurred at, of all places, a wedding. I was friends with the groom. She was a friend to the bride. We danced together all night. Her name was Jennifer. She preferred to be called Jen or Jenny. She was 37. I was 35. Following that night, we began seeing each other almost exclusively. I say almost exclusively because we hadn't actually agreed to do that yet. I had a couple of dates scheduled for the next month or so. Jenny had a few too. Mine did not amount to much. For me, they didn't. Jenny is someone I really like. I suppose hers didn't turn out too well. After a few months, we went on one of our many dates. When I mentioned that we were exclusive, she didn't seem surprised and readily agreed. We were on our way to building a life together. 6 months later, I asked her to marry me. She said yes. No need to think about it. Without hesitation. Simply a resounding yes. 3 months later, we got married. She was a tiger in the bed. That made me very happy. Even after we got married, she was always eager to get into bed with me whenever I wanted. She rarely initiated our romantic encounters. Jenny would initiate our lovemaking on rare occasions. She appeared even hotter than usual. I really adored her. And she said she loved me. She loved to experiment. She adored it all. She also showed me some things I was unfamiliar with. Our love life was wonderful and varied. After 10 years, she abruptly shut down. Not at once, but gradually. Over a year. I suspected it might be a medical issue. I asked her to schedule an appointment with the doctor. She did what? The doctor performed a series of tests. They all returned normal. Her hormone levels were normal. Every part of her. They could or did have tests, which came back normal. The doctor suggested it could be an emotional issue. Jenny simply snorted and shook her head. I nodded to the doctor and left the room so they could talk privately. Jenny burst out crying. I tried to console her, but she shook off my arm and hurried away. She had an appointment with the staff psychiatrist. I hoped she would keep her appointment for the next 3 months. She went to a psychiatrist. Then she informed me that I was to accompany her. I'd like to say we had love as she discussed what was bothering her. But we did not. We arrived at the doctor's office. It was a female psychiatrist. She sat behind the desk. Jenny and I sat in the 2 chairs in front of her desk. The doctor's name was Amy Mayers. Jen. Amy informed her. Jenny looked at me. She turned in her seat to face me. She did not smile. She cried. I shook my head as she started. My wonderful husband, John. You've been wonderful, loving, and caring. I've fallen in love with another. I apologize for telling you now. Not another man. She entered my life 6 months ago. She taught me things. She taught me to love another woman. She uses asterisks. And I yelled, getting up and leaving the doctor's office. John, please listen. I love you. I really do. She shouted as she followed me down the hallway. That's not true. If you loved me, you wouldn't cheat on me with another woman, right? But, John. As I mentioned there, duck. USL asterisk. But go live with your sweetheart. Jen fell to her knees and cried even harder. I was out the door and into the car, driving away before Jenny could catch up. I saw her in the rearview mirror as I accelerated out of the parking lot. I went home, knowing she'd be right behind me. I stood at the front door, waiting for her. I noticed a strange car pull up in the driveway. It was Amy and Jenny. I laughed as the door opened. I made sure it closed before the doctor could enter. Jenny attempted to reopen it, but I stopped her, grabbed her wrist, and pulled her to the couch. Dr. Mears began pounding on the front door. I ignored it. "So, are you leaving me for this woman? Do you want me to leave?" I asked calmly. "John, I still love you, but not enough to have love with me or even hug you. John, my dear, you must understand. Oh, I understand you cheated on me with another woman. John, you are not a call girl but rather a single asterisk. I'm neither of these." She cried again. "You should brush up on the definitions of those words. You're a cheating call girl. Although those two words are redundant. Oh, God. I love you, John, but you aren't sorry you cheated on me, right? Tell me you're sorry for cheating on me and will never do it again." I almost yelled. "I can't. I'm not sure what will happen, Ducky. The house is in both of our names. Do you want me to leave so you can live with your lover, or would you like to leave?" "I am not leaving you, John. Please allow me to explain." I turned, approached the front door, and opened it. Amy nearly fell in. "You and your lover can now move in together." I told her. "What? Jen? Have you told him?" she inquired of Jenny. "No, but you just did." I simply shook my head. "Well, Doc, you have good ethics. Really nice. I will report you." I headed upstairs and began packing my clothes. It took me an hour to move out with everything I felt was mine. The computers went with me. I left Jen with the tablet. The company I worked for owned the laptop I was using. I got my clothes, a bunch of towels and such. I also took all of the guns out of the gun safe. I locked those in the trunk and piled all of the clothes and belongings on top. I went back inside. I looked around one last time. Jen was on the couch with Amy, and they were talking via SL asterisk. But I told Jennifer, "John, please wait a minute," Amy said. I stared at her with murder in my eyes. She closed her mouth before she could say another word. I simply stared at her. "So, how does it feel to be a homewrecker? B asterisk, John. Things happen." "Oh, shut the screw up. Q asterisk T." I yelled and walked out, slamming the door as hard as I could behind me. 3 of the 6 glass panes cracked. I laughed aloud. I drove away. 6 months later, I had moved into an apartment near work. Friends informed me that Jenny had left Amy. I had to laugh again. Then I received a check in the mail with a note from Jen. "This is half of the equity we had in the house when you left." It was a handsome sum. I also heard she couldn't keep up with her mortgage payments. She once broke up with Amy. Again, I laughed. I also heard she was living in an apartment near her workplace. The state ethics board also informed me that Amy had lost both her medical and psychiatric licenses. I suppose that's when she and Jen broke up. Jen was among those called as witnesses. I suppose she told the truth. At least I had something to be happy about. Neither of us filed for divorce. I was not seeing anyone. I threw myself into my job. I heard Jen went out with a couple of guys she worked with, but she always returned home alone. I still loved her deep down. And after a year apart, I began to rethink many things. But I'd be damned if I made the first move. I did, however, think about her a lot. Then the letter arrived. I almost threw it away. I stood there, looking at the handwritten envelope. It was her handwriting. Instead of throwing it out, I placed it in the center of my dresser. So I saw it every day when I woke up and went to bed. After about a week, I finally opened it. "Hello, John." I had to laugh. I was wondering if she understood the significance of the salutation. Probably not. "Dear John, I hope you're well." "No, I actually do. I would like to apologize to you. What I did with Amy was my fault, and it was completely wrong of me to even think about it. I sincerely apologize for hurting you. Many things have happened to me and others. I broke up with Amy." Not entirely true. She split up with me after I testified against her. I told her I didn't mind for her anyway. She can no longer practice. She had to do menial tasks at a fast food restaurant. Nobody else would hire her. I'm sure you're pleased to hear that. I must tell you, John, that I have gone on dates with other men. I allowed them to take me to dinner. Then I returned home alone. I simply cannot find anyone as nice to me as you were when we were dating. I also realize what I did was wrong, and I apologize. But you made it clear that you never wanted to see me again. Also, I haven't looked at another woman. I hope that surprised you. I hope this surprises you. I love you with all of my heart. I really love you. I can't think of anyone except you. I think about you all day and night. I have dreams about you when I wake up in the morning. I think of you first. I look to your side of the bed. I cry when I don't see you there. Please let me know what I need to do to get you to respond to me. I'm at your mercy. I am your wife. I will do whatever you tell me to. Honest. The first need to speak with you about this in person. Not on the phone, and not in a return letter. Do you know my cell phone number? Text me a time and location to meet you. I will be there, I promise. Love you. Jenny. I put the letter down. I was sitting there, wondering if she truly meant what she wrote. I let the letter sit for another week before texting her and seeing what happened. What would be the cost? A few hours and a couple of dollars. I texted her on Friday night. 80.30 pounds Holiday Inns, 1,204. I received her reply. I will be there. I had a room. I only needed to pick up some beer and wine. We'd see how far she was prepared to go. I arrived in the room at 7 o'clock. I grabbed some ice for the cooler. Then I lay down and watched some television. At precisely 8:30 a.m., there was a knock on the door. I got up and opened the door. She was gorgeous. My heart started pounding in my chest. She wore a lovely red cocktail dress. Come inside. I told her while standing aside. Thank you, she said, reaching up and caressing my cheek as she passed by. I exhaled quietly. You are welcome, I said, shutting the door. I awoke the next morning with a feeling I hadn't had in a few years, and it had only occurred the night before. How did you know her? I asked. I once went to see Sally about, well, my reduced love drive. She completed all of the tests that Connie performed when we visited her. Sally was telling me that my labs were normal. Amy knocked and came inside. She smiled at me and asked Sally if we could talk. Sally excused herself and entered the hall with Amy. 5 minutes later, Sally returned. She gave me an appointment slip. It was to see Amy and help me with my love drive. She explained that she thought it was an emotional response. There's nothing wrong with me physically. I started seeing Amy on Tuesday mornings after you left for work. We spent the first few sessions talking about you and your personality. I told her that you were a wonderful man. Then she began talking about how men can deceive women. I was astounded by what she told me. How could she say such things? After I told her how wonderful I thought you were, then, over the course of the next few sessions, my thoughts shifted to what she said about how men, in general, were bad. I have no idea why that occurred. It disturbed me at first, but eventually I stopped caring about men. I fell in love with Amy. I'm not sure if that was her intention or it just happened. Has she ever hypnotized you? I asked. She may have, but she later told me to forget about it. I'll tell you this before you ask. The first guy I went out with. It took me a long time to say yes to him. I had to force myself to simply pick up the phone and call him to inform him. I took 3 days to finally respond to him. Then, with each man who asked, it became a little easier. That's when I realized what B had done to me. That's when I sat down and wrote you a letter. Oh, God, I am so sorry. She cried again. I need to go to the bathroom. Okay, fair enough. I rolled out of bed and entered the bathroom. Why are you doing this? I asked. Well, you've already seen me do it. So, why don't I do it in front of you from now on? A good question. It did not bother me, so why should she? Are you hungry? I asked. Yes. Are you planning to order room service? No. I assumed we'd go down to the breakfast buffet. I told her that I didn't have anything to wear. I brought you a few things. I approached my suitcase at the end of the bed. I opened it and took out a tan skirt, a black blouse, knee-high white socks, and a pair of Keds. What? No underwear? She asked. No. I told her that this skirt appears to be quite short, so she could either wear it or stay here. So, do you like it? She asked. She looked stunning. Actually, she resembled a schoolgirl. Yes. Just, yes. She barked. What? I asked. Never mind. She said, lowering her gaze to the floor. Yes, I like it. You look 20 years younger. Really? She inquired, running to the full-length mirror. She turned this way and that, looking herself up and down. Okay. Let's go, she said, walking to the door. When we returned to the room, she was standing at the end of the bed. Before you say anything, why don't you go downstairs and pay for another night? I'd like to stay if that's okay with you. Sure. Not a problem. But I've already paid for one night. Why don't you go down to pay for tonight? I can, if you want me to. I do. She nodded, picked up her purse, and walked out the door. I felt relieved. Epilogue. Now I could think a little more. I still needed to make a decision. Should I keep or divorce her? I needed additional information. I want to see what she was like when I ducked her. Then she entered through the door. When she shut it, I spoke. Strip. She froze right inside the door. She dropped her purse. We spent the rest of the day and night ducking into any position we could think of. She came with me to my apartment. We went to get some of her clothes. 2 weeks later, we moved her out of her apartment and into ours. She had a longer commute to work, but it wouldn't last. Neither of us had spent any of the money we had earned on our house. 3 months later, we had moved into our new home. Did we live happily ever after? I do not know yet. I am happy right now. She is happy now. Will this last? Who knows what might happen in the future? I do not. She does not. We did agree to talk it over. From now on, if one of us became unhappy with the other, we would discuss it and be completely honest with each other.